Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast with your host, Kareen Zutleger. Join us as we uncover the hidden thoughts, stories, and moments that help bring light to the healing power of truth and examine how silence can affect us mentally, physically, and spiritually. We'll also share profound stories, interviews, and transformative narratives to help release ourselves from the hidden and step into healing towards inner peace, joy, and fulfillment. Now, here's your healing strategist and host, Kareen.
Welcome to the Secret Keepers podcast. And today, my guest is Arron Lloyd. And I'm going to have Arron tell you a little bit about himself.
Sure. What's going on, guys? My name is Arron Lloyd. I'm originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is an inner city in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Grew up in a single parent home in an inner city, and I'm an actor in the city in New York City, professional actor, theater, TV, stage, commercials. And what I do is I help actors default to their best, actors and entrepreneurs default to the best, encode themselves with the best so they can get further faster.
I love that. And Arron, tell me a little bit about what that looks like in the actor world, because that's so fascinating. And I know you've done like some really cool things. So give us a little glimpse on what that's like.
Yeah, so my experience, and I think maybe your audience can agree as well, the entertainment industry is rife with rejection. It's rife with other people's opinions. It's rife with a lot of outside noise. And if we know that as within is so without, then it's kind of hard and challenging if you've constantly been rejected for something that you want to do or that you have dreams in your heart that your mouth can't even articulate. And the only thing that is holding people back, and what's a huge tragedy for me, I think Tony Bennett has said it's a huge sin to sin against your talent. And I think there's a lot of talented people who just don't have the confidence or the resilience to press forward and live into their passion, their gift, the thing that God has blessed them with. So my job is, if it be for them, to help them maximize their ability to make that happen, because obviously the industry is challenging, and I just think that if you equip yourself with the right tools, then you can do that. And I'm an example. I use many of these tools to book myself, and I've booked 3 or 4 gigs in the past year and continue to book more, even though it's kind of slow right now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love too that you're saying it's, what is within here inside of us is what really matters. But we are really inundated with information that tells us otherwise, that it's the fame and the glory. But if you really love your craft, if you're passionate about what you're doing, get out there and do it anyways, despite the naysayers and the critics. And so it sounds to me like you have got some joy and some fulfillment in your life. And was it always like that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think I think I've always been an optimistic person. And what I mean by that is that I've kind of always been glass half full. And in terms of joy or fulfillment, it's not always been this way. There was a time where I did not smile at all. I didn't smile, and I was not the guy to smile depending on the environment that I was in, just from making sure I was good, you know what I'm saying, in the environment that I was in. Um, and also just circumstances, life circumstances. There was times we all have things that happen in life, and before I had these tools, sometimes those things would really get me down. I've never been a depressed person. I've never been clinically depressed, anything like that. But there was times where I was like, God, maybe it's just not in the car. This is your boy. It's freaking dusty right now, man. This is hard, man. This is, I don't know. I'm doing good. I'm treating people well. I'm working hard. Why am I not where I want to be? And just yeah, that, so it has not always been that way. And I think the fascinating thing about joy, I just heard this the other day actually, is that joy is something that isn't really necessarily needed from the outside. You can find your joy from within. A couple years ago, I watched a documentary on Netflix. It was fascinating. They would go to these like third world countries, and these people, like, I forget how they measured happiness, but these people had more joy than people here in America.
Well,
That
absolutely.
and they had less. So it's all relative.
It really is. And my daughter traveled to Africa to Sierra Leone, and she had done some work there where she was working with little kids and teaching them science and math in a little village. And she came back with a completely different perspective of things. She's like, we're very conditioned here to believe that it's the stuff that brings us that joy and that brings us the happiness. And she said, they didn't have anything. They
Yeah.
didn't have anything, and they were happy. They would sing and dance, and they lived together with their families, and that's what they knew, and that's what their experience of that was just so joyful. And for her, it was humbling, right, to see that. And she's also traveled to Costa Rica and to Lima, Peru, and been able to see these different countries where it's not about the stuff. It was really about the family and that kind of collective. And speaking of family, what was yours like?
My family is very large on my father's side. And on my mother's side, I'm sure it's large, but on my mother's side, I have just the core people like my grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, my two sisters. The interesting thing about my family is that because my father passed when I was a 1 year old, he was shot in the head. I
Mhm.
kind of got disconnected from that side of my family. Not from anything intentional or anything. It's just like my mom remarried, and that's who I grew up around. So my mom grew up in after she lost my father, and my mom has quite a story herself. She's gone through a lot, and she has a lot of kind of trauma in her life. She had me when she was 17. Thank God, thank God that I'm here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
But she had me, and I can't imagine, because you're still essentially a child when you're 17 trying to figure it out, and I'm her firstborn. So I think she did a phenomenal job. Perfect? No, but did a phenomenal job of of doing the best she could with the resources that she had to kind of try to shield me and my two sisters from the same kind of environment that she grew up in. We were a step up from how she grew up. Like, we grew up in the hood, she grew up in the hood. Like, there was things that she really had experienced. So I think in her trying to like hold it together for the family and working and going through her own frustrations or her own things and still needing to provide that, or for whatever reason, I don't know what it was, but she would sometimes get down, depressed. And I kind of grew up in that environment. And to kind of help out around the house, while she was off at work, me and my sisters went to the same school, so I needed to make sure they were on the bus after school. Hey, where's my sister's lobby? Okay, we're meeting, be in the lobby. Okay, we're here, we're on the bus, we're home safe. Making sure we're in the house, had the key to the house, and would make sure we got in and make sure they had their homework done, things like, just to help make sure the chores were done. So then when mom comes home, she has a little less on her plate because she's dealing with a lot, that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. So did the best I could with that. And my father's side of the family, very close knit, some in Chicago, some in Mississippi. So, and this past year or two, I actually discovered something fascinating about that side of my family, that I have a Purple Heart recipient on that side of the family that I didn't know about. But
Okay.
as I grew as a man and not having had my father, I obviously wanted to discover more about my biological father. Like, what was he like? Because I only know him through stories. And
Sure.
everybody has positive things to say about him.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's like, oh, he was the guy, he treated everybody well, and things like that. So all I know him is through stories, uh, and have no experience with him beyond that. Actually, his birthday's coming up next month, actually. So that's usually a time where I kind of get reflective. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think that, what's really neat is the role that you played.
Hmm.
You didn't feel like it was a burden. It was like, I'm doing this to help my mom out. And you recognize that she was doing the best she could with what she had.
Hmm.
Not everybody sees it that way. It can be like a lot of projection of blame can get put on parents that, oh, well, you were 17. There's a lot of shame felt by a woman who's 17, having a baby.
Hmm.
And you're saying you see your mom as the cycle breaker because your mom said, no matter what, I'm taking a stand and I want better for my kids than what I had before. And then you took a step up and said, and I'm going to help out here.
Mhm.
It's amazing. When things could have easily went, the other way because your mom was at work. You could have easily taken a path of, trouble and mischief and all kinds of things, right?
And I could have, Corinne, I could have. The only thing that kind of was my saving grace that I didn't see as a saving grace then was that my sisters were there. And if I sneaked out, they would have snitched. So I they were kind of my saving grace. I got to get them a nice little card. Thank you for saving my life, something like that. So there was
Yeah.
that, but I definitely had the urges to sneak out or be a knucklehead and things like that. And talking about cycle breakers, I think that's a profound thing that you just shared because, and back then I didn't hold resentment. And definitely I learned this about myself through my own counseling because when I was younger, I was putting other people's needs prior to my own. I actually learned to start doing that. And that could be fantastic for what I do as a coach. I understand people very well just based on me having to have it together at a young age, very mature for my age. That's been told to me my whole life. And even in that, there's some trauma in that I'm putting other people's needs prior to mine. So in the past 4 years, I've had to recondition that and change some things with that to make sure things are balanced. Um, but yeah, I definitely could have been a knucklehead and definitely have gotten into some things, but not nearly, I'm still here. There's been
Yeah.
people that have been locked up or are no longer with us. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
Well, and I think too, I mean, as teenagers, contrary to what parents want to believe, but teenagers just get into stuff because, right, our prefrontal cortex isn't developed. We're impulsive during those period of times. We're really seeking independence, and so sometimes the stuff that we get into, though, when we aren't guided in the right way, um, can really lead us down the wrong path. Maybe not such a positive path. I don't know. Um, then that can make our life even more difficult. Now, I heard you say, that you had gone through your own therapies and then must have moved from therapy to coaching. And so I do like to always mention that, if you are struggling, with a major illness, a depression, anxiety, to seek mental health professionals. Um, I went that path. I went the traditional therapy. And then when I felt like I was like, I think I've graduated from this. I moved into having a life coach, in the
Mhm.
life coach moving more forward focusing, right? And that as opposed to, handling the things from the past. Is that kind of like the similar experience for you?
It was the reverse for me.
Yeah.
I didn't really start getting to counseling or therapy since like the past year, and that's been a great thing as well. But prior my foray into like any kind of wanting to better myself or anything like that came from necessity through books, YouTube, and then life coaching, which then eventually, and what's fascinating about this to me, which is like self-awareness is so key. And even as a young kid, because I was mature, because I had a level of self-awareness, because I'm an artist, because I'm an observer, things like that, I felt like I had a very deep self-awareness of myself.
Yeah.
Then I noticed some things about myself like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Or you're right. Oh my God, from counseling, which is more past based and things like that, or why you have some of these patterns. And the
Mhm.
curious thing about what we do is we're able to, once we understand and have that awareness, we know how to shift it and change it.
Yes.
They both kind of think you said it perfectly. Coaching is forward facing, therapy is kind of understanding how you got to where you are.
Absolutely. I mean, I can say neuroencoding saved my life, and I don't take that lightly because what it did for me was in the times where, because I struggled with suicidal ideation, and it has waxed and waned for years. And I'm able to use the stop technique with it and say, like, no, when the voices start to get loud, the inner critic, immediate go to the stop technique. And then I've applied it now where I start to recognize certain scenarios that come up where I sat and I've done it like we've been taught, 10 times in a row, so many days in a row where, I just squashed it. And so much so that it's like a non-existent thing in my life anymore. And that's pivotal. and it's not something, like I said, I haven't been very open in having that kind of a conversation. But the tools have been amazing. Share with us how you use them.
Yeah. So the stop technique is one of the first ones that I've practiced on myself as well. A lot of my kind of usage in that, there was kind of like I distinguish it this way. I've always had high confidence, meaning I believe in my abilities. If I have the right mentorship, I have the right tools, I believe I have the ability and the capability to get to where I want to be. My self-image has not always matched where I want to be.
Sure.
Me, that self-loathing, one of those top
Yeah.
10, right?
Mhm.
Self-loathing. Do I belong here? Do I really have the value to be here? Oh, what do
Mhm.
you mean? Wow, that kind of thing. Then also with the acting, that can kind of go on there too. Like if I start really succeeding, the self-sabotage is like, oh, do I deserve the success? What if other people feel a way about me? I still want to connect. I still want to be cool with people, and because I'm very down to earth. And as you start to succeed a little bit, maybe other people view you differently or think that you view yourself differently when it's just, I'm just growing. I'm just growing, and I didn't do all this work to stay in the same place.
Right.
So the stop technique, how I want to give you something like it's like something that I really kind of use it for, that's kind of like emotional. It's I think I done did it so much I can't even remember.
But
I don't know.
that's beautiful though, right? It's that you get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah.
That could be a thing that I used to deal with. And but because you have changed and grown so much, right? We call it the evolution, right? The evolution of your soul. You have continued to grow. And as you were talking about the awareness, that being the biggest piece, right? I can't, in order to grow, you want to be able to have, like, see things from different perspectives, so somebody says something to you and it's very different than what you think or believe or feel, and but can you take it and slip it on for a little while and walk around in it and see it from a different lens, from a different perspective? And then often what that perspective shift does for you is it opens up an awareness, and it's like, oh, and you're like, huh, well, I never thought about it like that, but I can think, I'm like, I can see that. I can see that. It maybe still doesn't quite fit. If you don't like that perspective, you can take it back off, and it doesn't have to be yours. But most of the time we integrate it, and it helps us, then we grow.
Mhm.
And the person who really can see things from the most perspectives wins, because we can relate the most to people, and then that shows your emotional intelligence, because you're like, oh, I can really see, just like you were talking about, the people who can experience joy even though they don't have stuff.
Mhm.
It's an amazing thing. And then once we're in that state of awareness, we can then take responsibility and make different choices, because ultimately that it is on us. Doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what happened, like what your mom may have done. It doesn't matter even really. It does to you to some point, but that you were raised, without your biological dad, because he died um and what matters is you taking the responsibility for your life and the
Mhm.
choices that you make. And often I can hear, especially, now we're kind of coming into an era of time, and we have been in it, is that there's a lot of projection of blame out onto parents, right? And that personal accountability isn't necessarily there, right? And it's like, you need to take responsibility for your own life, because, once you're past teen years, um, you know better.
And
You just,
and I would add too, Corinne, that something that's kind of helped me expand my perception is that parents in general, mine's, yours, anybody's, they're people too.
yeah,
That have their own dreams and fears, and I imagine that if that they're doing the best they can with the resource they had. And if you're talking about generations, like we don't understand what our great grandparents were going through that
right,
got passed down epigenetically,
right,
that maybe they saw, or maybe they saw their grandfather get shipped off to war, and now that grief now lives, and that caused how they reacted to their children. There's all kinds of like, and I think just opening up your awareness to have for me, it boils down to compassion. We don't have to necessarily dismiss unacceptable behavior, and
Oh gosh.
I think it's important to forgive and then possibly reconcile if it's healthy for you. But you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to reconcile. I think it's important to have boundaries and
Yeah.
express what your needs are, and I think it's important for parents to do the work too, if you want to
Absolutely.
have that level of awareness. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, the blame piece. I'm not a parent yet, so I haven't,
Right.
maybe I'll get to that once they're a teenager or something like that. They'll,
It's
Dad, you didn't do this.
Well, it's
You
certainly a
know?
path I have walked with our kids. I mean,
Yep.
I've sat them all down. I've had to sit them down and apologize, especially the oldest one.
Mhm.
You know, I took the parenting that I had, and that's how I was. And so I was a yeller and a thrower, and I would have tantrums, and I did not know how to properly express emotion.
Mhm.
There were a lot of things that were going on. You know, generational trauma it's the lineage is long in my family, and so I had to sit with them and say, hey, like I'm really sorry, and I didn't really know, um, and was it necessary? It was good to heal our relationship,
Yes.
to seek the forgiveness for it, to have them say, we do forgive you for it was great. 100% agree with you. There are going to be situations where that's just not possible. Like
Yeah.
you can seek the forgiveness and you can forgive them because you don't, it affects you, right? And being unforgiving is like, drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, as they say. And, but as parents, we really are doing the best with the tools that we have. And sometimes we just don't have the best tools in our box.
And I imagine it's a exciting but scary thing too. You're responsible for another whole human being. You know what I'm saying? So like it's like I've just always think like just have grace with standards.
Uh,
And to your point, my experience of you is that you're a very compassionate, loving person. And I think that you've always had that, and that you were doing the best you could. You were replicating what you had seen because you thought that was love. And it took being in different rooms, seeing and experiencing love in different ways for you to be like, hey, there's a better way. There's this way. I haven't been my best self. Let me evolve into my best self. And I think
yeah,
we're all on that journey continuously.
I do too. I do too. Can you see it, right? Can you recognize the journey that you're on? And I love that you're doing this sort of work with actors and actresses, people in the entertainment world, so that you can help them also build up their confidence and the inner work that it's going to take to get out there and really achieve their dreams. So what does that look like? So when somebody comes and works with you, what does that look like?
So on the base level, like stage, I'll say like the stage one of somebody usually coming to me if they're an actor, they're usually coming to me for auditions. So help me on this audition, and I'll help them on audition. And I notice things in their audition right away that they're beating themselves up beyond just the technicalities of like how to act and stuff like that. That I can do. I have that experience. What I'm really looking for is the human being behind this actor, because I know if this pattern of you beating yourself up, not feeling good about your work, not doing this stuff, letting something an acting teacher said to you before, if it's a woman, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not this, all this kind of stuff, the beauty standards, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
If that exacerbates long term, that's going to erode their confidence and self-esteem essentially. And my goal and my hope and my desire is that yes, you can have the dream and you can do these, and I think you can also have standards. I don't think that somebody else's opinion of you has to be your reality. In this industry, you get, especially if the more and more you succeed, if you're an A-lister or something like that, you have everybody coming at you. You can't please everybody. So who are you here? My goal is, how do I help the actor be able to look themselves in the mirror every day and feel good about themselves? And that's kind of a metric I use for myself. Can I look myself in the mirror? Am I living in integrity with myself? Do I make mistakes? Yes. Oh, shoot. Can I acknowledge that that was wrong? Yes. I'm human. I'm flawed. As long as I can look myself in the mirror at the end of the day, that's what matters most to me. So that's the first stage, auditions. The second stage, once they understand that, wow, this is more than just audition help, right? This is more than just acting help, which I can help them with and elevate their self-tapes and stuff like that. Now it becomes a deeper challenge, like with now we're going into epigenetics and generational traumas and who they are and how they can feel better about themselves and all that kind of great stuff and encoding themselves to default to their best so that they can shift unconscious and conscious patterns.
Yeah, I love that. I love that's what I love about neuroencoding, and I love that it it can be quick, right?
Yep.
Is get in and get out. Working in the subconscious, um, with everything that you've been doing and everything you've learned through the institute and just along your whole journey, you've gained wisdom.
Yes.
So share with the audience some wisdom that you've gained and that they could apply into their life.
I would say for the audience that the biggest thing for me, based on my experience, I'll talk about the technicalities and I'll just talk about my experience first. My experience with neuroencoding, my foray into to uh, the institute, all started from a decision I made when I was 25, when I was sleeping on the floor in the Bronx, when all seemed bleak, where like I did not, I literally had to collect coins from my apartment, or I would pick coins up from there. I don't think I've shared this on any, I don't think I've shared this on any podcast. So I'm gonna share with you, okay? There's a time where it was so bad that I wrote on a cardboard box. I forget what I wrote, but I then went down to Union Square. Union Square is a place downtown Manhattan, and like, hey, can somebody help me? I did that for like 20, 30 minutes. And I don't want to say I have shame, but I was trying to be resourceful. I was trying to like, there has to be a way. Like
Mhm.
so I say all that to say, I chose and decided to go to an event. I invested in myself. I chose that I was worth it. I invested in myself. That was almost a while ago, right? Did that. From that, get introduced to Joseph's work. Didn't know I'd be working with him. Didn't know I'd be closing for him. That to me was mind blowing. Like
Yeah.
that, what? Like I respect the man so much, and it's not to say that wow, I don't have the capability. It's just like an honor for me. You're somebody I really, really look up to.
Mhm.
So the wisdom in that is that your today does not have to equal your tomorrow. And I think that if you betting on yourself by leaning into people that love you, leaning into support, leaning into your vision for your life, leaning into what is possible, because there are possibilities, and just lay this brick. Today, oh my God, it sucks. Shoot, I'm in Wisconsin, there's corn everywhere. If I see one more cornfield or whatever, it's like, just see beyond the corn. See,
Yeah, cows.
yeah. And or if corn's your thing, do that too. But see a vision for yourself of what is possible for you, what's your heart, what resonates with your heart. It's my belief, and if you borrow this belief, if it works for you, that if you have a vision, something that is heart-centered, it is yours. It's
Mhm.
given to you from God. It's yours. It's just your way to co-create with God to make that thing happen. And I think that God blesses us with people, places, circumstances to help. You can tell I'm passionate about this because I've lived it and I
There's
am in it. So that's the experience piece. The technicality piece, now it's like when you have a gift, when you have a talent, the skill that you can gain from being around the right people, from their years of wisdom, from them pouring into you, the skills that you can create beyond. So it's not a talent, it's something that you can do and replicate over and over and over again. That is profound. And that's something that I've gotten from the Institute. And then also the inspiration, the people I meet.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing things too, Corinne. Other people are doing amazing things with the Institute, world changers, leaders, people that you wouldn't have met otherwise that are consistently setting the bar for what's possible. So I think when you get into the rooms like that it's like this is my tribe. These are the people I need to be around, you know?
Oh, I agree 100%. It's so right, that energy that you pick up just from being around, right? Because energy is contagious, right?
Yes.
Because we share energy for all one collective, and we share the energy, and we talk about this, right? In the work that we do, is the magnetism of it. That like energy is you're gonna get drawn to that real high energy, and it's I love it. And it can be, it's a good addicting. It's a good
Yes.
addicting.
Big,
Thank
right
you
way.
for sharing that though, because I see you doing great things. I see the passion that you have. I can remember you doing your neuro talk and standing up there, and I was like, I'm not your mama, but boy, I'm a proud mama.
I remember you saying that. I remember.
Because I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, because I just, I love to watch people win and that, yeah, the passion there behind it. So I would love for you to share with the audience how they can find you, Arron, because there are people out there who need you, and share with them how they can find you.
Sure. You can find me at Arron Empowers. Arron is spelled Arron, empowers.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Arron Lloyd.
Perfect. And I'll have that all in the show notes too. So um, thank you so much for being here today, Arron, and sharing all your wisdom and your heart with us. And I just love you, kid. And I just love watching you shine.
Love it. Same to you. Much love.
Thank you for joining the Secret Keepers podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a like and follow so we can invite you back. And if you just want more, visit CorrineZuleger.com. Remember, you're not alone.